Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani qeqwa Savannah Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. Today you can expect an update on the upcoming Nigerian elections, what's going on with the Save the Rhino Trust. We'll also be having a chat with Maseko Mohwasa in Botswana and of course bringing you an overview of the news. You are joined by Ashwin Bedi and Glenn Orashipura.
Now, today is World Consumer Rights Day. If you ever purchased something and needed to return it, you have exercised your consumer rights. Now, these rights have not always been something that was easily defined or enforced. Now, the Organization of Consumer International has been bringing awareness to these rights with World Consumer Rights Day. Let's have a look at this video on World Consumer Rights Day.
Today is Tuesday, the 15th of March, and these are the stories making the headlines. 5 people drown after a church ritual at Fetch River. The families of 5 church congregants are reeling after a child and 4 men drowned in the river on Saturday afternoon during a church ritual. Church congregants who had visited the Fetch River on the R719 Wesselbron Boltfontein Road were performing a ritual when a 12-year-old girl, Kelebohile Kototsa, was swept away. Details remain sketchy, but it's understood that Kototsa's mother was performing rituals in the water when she lost hold of her daughter. 4 men aged 39, 29, 34, and 37 had seen the child slip away and decided to enter the river to rescue her, but they also drowned. Church congregants are warned to avoid the rivers to do their rituals, especially when they do not know how to swim, said the police in a statement.
Now, in our next story, Kyiv apartment block shelled, underground gas storage unit in Ukraine damaged by shelling amidst expected peace talks. Now, Ukraine said it had begun hard talks on a ceasefire, immediate withdrawal of troops, and security guarantees with Russia yesterday, despite the fatal shelling of a residential building in Kyiv. Now, both sides reported rare progress at the weekend after earlier rounds have primarily focused on ceasefire to get aid to towns and cities under siege by Russian forces and evacuate civilians. Those truces have frequently failed. Now, firefighters tackled the remains of the blaze at the apartment block in the capital, where a stunned young resident described the chaos of the previous night in a city targeted by the Russian advance, but so far largely spared bombardment. Now, officials said at least 1 person was killed and 3 were hospitalized. 1 body, mostly covered, still lay on the ground. Now, the premises of an underground gas storage facility in the Chernihiv region of Ukraine has also been damaged by shelling. The Ukraine state gas company Naftogaz confirmed.
Now in Kinshasa, at least 60 dead in train accident. A train crash in the southeastern of Democratic Republic of Congo has killed at least 60 people, the state rail company and local sources said on Saturday. The toll is 61 dead, men, women and children, while 52 were injured and have been evacuated, Mark Manyonga Ndambo, Director of Infrastructure at the SNCC train operator, told AFP. Local media quoted the provincial governor Fifi Masuka as saying 60 people had been killed. The train was a freight service which had been carrying several hundred stowaways. Namanyonga said the train was made up of 15 wagons, 12 of which were empty, and was coming from Luen in a neighboring province destined for the mining town of Tenke close to Kolwezi. Due to the lack of passenger trains or passable roads, people use goods trains to travel long distances.
United States ready to help Africa find solution to possible higher food prices amid Russia-Ukraine war. Now, as Russia continues its war against Ukraine and ripple effects are felt in Africa, the U.S. is seeking to cement relations with the African Union. This was the outcome of a high-level dialogue between the AU Commission and the U.S. in Washington, D.C. on Thursday and Friday last week. Now, coincidentally, a week after African countries voted equivocally at the United Nations General Assembly's resolution on the invasion of Ukraine. In his address at the high-level meeting, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. was ready to work with the AU members states to avert hunger and starvation that could be caused by the unjust war on Ukraine. Now, the Food Agriculture Organization noted that the global number of undernourished people could increase by 8 to 13 million, mostly sub-Saharan Africa and other poor parts of the world because of the ongoing war.
In our next story, Senegal launches operation against rebels in Casamance. The Senegalese army announced on Sunday night that it had launched an operation against rebels in Casamance, the scene of an old conflict in the south of the country. This offensive is launched less than 2 months after the death of 4 Senegalese soldiers and the capture of 7 others by the rebels in the border area with the Gambia. The 7 soldiers, members of the West African military mission in the Gambia, have since been released. Casamance has been the scene of one of the continent's oldest conflicts since independence fighters took to the streets with rudimentary weaponry after the repression of an MFDC march in December 1982. The rebellion has thrived on the peculiarities of the fertile region, which is largely isolated from Senegal by the Gambia and prone to feelings of neglect. After claiming thousands of lives and ravaging the economy, the conflict has persisted at a slow pace, with flashpoints like the massacre of 14 men near Ziguinchor in 2018. That brings us to the end of the first half of our top stories. More news after the break.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. We now tackle our second batch of news stories. Now, more than 5,000 girls drop out of school every year. Stakeholders have called for more efforts to close the gap between girls' and boys' access to education because regardless of many government efforts, more than 5,000 girls in Tanzania that drop out of school every year. Now, parts of the reasons include cultural practices and lack of support infrastructure. Director and co-founder of the Thai Tanzania Institute, Mr. Ian Tarimo, said the World Bank figures show 5,500 girls drop out of school because of early pregnancies, indicated that there is a need to step up efforts to bridge the gap created between girls and boys. He said the issue of ensuring equality in society was not only for parents or the government, but also a cross-cutting issue that needed cooperation.
In our next story, Nigeria's academic union extends strike by 2 months. Nigeria's academic staff union of universities has extended its ongoing industrial action by another 8 weeks to allow the government more time to meet all its demands to avoid future strikes. The union is accusing the Nigerian government of insensitivity and of peddling lies. The ASUU also issued a statement on the controversy surrounding the university transparency and accountability solution that its technical team developed to replace the integrated personnel payroll information system, which is currently being used to pay its members' salaries, which they say has been imposed on universities by the government. Other demands include the payment of earned academic allowances, a revitalization fund for universities, fixing of discrepancies in the payment of salaries, funding of state universities, and the release of white papers on visitation panels sent to universities. Thousands of students have been affected by the ongoing strike.
Now, in our next story, toddler dies as 23 Kesep shacks burn. Now, the latest shack fire claimed the life of 3-year-old Emmanuel Iyalo Absalom on Friday in Kesep. Now, it's alleged that the fire started after a minor boy residing in one of the destroyed shacks left a cooking pot unattended. Now, he also confirmed that 111 residents were left homeless after 23 shacks on 4 properties were destroyed in the blaze. Now, the flames that were fueled by the presence of a breeze spread rapidly. Now, Walvis Bay Chief Dennis Basson advised parents to ensure the safety of children in emergency situations. According to Basson, the municipality could provide immediate relief for the victims of the fire. Now, after the blaze, a front-end loader was brought in and the area was cleared of rubble. 22 stands were also pitched for the displaced people. Mattresses, blankets, food parcels, and tins of fish were handed over. Emergency water lines with taps were installed and skip bins were deployed for the disposal of rubble, he said.
In our next story, severe thunderstorm expected in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. The South African Weather Service on Monday warned KwaZulu-Natal residents of severe thunder showers accompanied by excessive lightning and hail expected in the province. The Weather Office said there is a high-pressure ridge in the Atlantic Ocean extending to the south of South Africa that is causing strong onshore flow into the southern and southeastern parts of the country. Sources said these conditions will result in scattered to widespread showers and thunder showers over the central and southeastern parts of South Africa. Residents are warned that these conditions can lead to localized flooding of and damage to infrastructure. People are urged to avoid outdoor activities as hail and flooding may result in injuries and death.
In our next story, we are in Nigeria. Now, stakes are high as Nigeria prepares for elections 2023. Now, on 25 February 2022, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari signed the electoral bill into law, paving the way for federal and state elections on February 25 March 11, 2023. Political parties need to elect their flagship candidates by June 3, 2022. Now, the elections will take place against a backdrop of complex economic, political, and security challenges. And the outcomes of the polls will have far-reaching implications, not only for Nigeria, but the whole region, which faces political instability in the wake of several recent West African coups, writes Tenyolo Tayo for the Institute for Security Studies. Now, since the 2019 elections, violence, criminality, and other forms of insecurity have worsened in Nigeria. Now, in the north, acts of terror continue destroying lives and livelihoods, while banditry has become an even deadlier threat. Since the last polls, there have been more deaths from banditry than terrorism. Crime is also widespread in much of the south, and kidnapping for ransom and armed robberies have surged countrywide. Now, for many Nigerians, the 2023 polls present an important opportunity for change in trajectory. Most attention will be on the ruling party candidates, the All Progressive Congress and the prominent opposition People's Democratic Party, given their dominance of the political space.
That brings us to the end of our top stories. Now, rhinos have been endangered for a long time. It's no secret. In fact, the Save the Rhino Trust was founded in 1982. That's 8 years before I was born and probably more before Glenora was born. But for that long, the Save the Rhino Trust has been trying to take care of these gentle giants. So after the break, we'll be having a chat with the Chief Operating Officer. Stay with us.
I never get enough. Wind me up. We're going over the top. Better get ready. Here it comes.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Now, as Ashwin mentioned earlier, the Save the Rhino Trust was founded in 1982 to address the poaching of rhinos in northwest Namibia, involving surrounding communities in rhino protection. Now, the Trust's Chief Operating Officer, Andrew Malherbe, spoke to NMH journalist Yolanda Nell about strides being made in keeping these gentle giants alive. Let's have a look at this video.
Yolanda, Save the Rhino Trust was formed in the early 80s, so 1982, and it was formed in order to address the rampant poaching of black rhino in northwest Namibia, so Western Kunene. Save the Rhino Trust adopted a bit of a different approach to rhino conservation in that there has always been a really solid emphasis on community engagement and community involvement in the fight against rhino poaching. And that's as opposed to the ordinary sort of guns and helicopter and law enforcement type of approach. So that's what the trust is really all about. It's about involving local communities in rhino monitoring and rhino protection. Our core sort of mandate, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Namibian government, so the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. Our mandate is to collect data on the rhinos in Western Kunene. So what we do is we operate in an unfenced area, so it's communal land. It's the largest population of black rhino to exist outside a formally protected area, so outside like a national park on the whole planet. So these are really, really very special rhinos, desert adapted as well. They move in amongst the communities, they move freely, there's no fences. And so what we do at Save the Rhino Trust is we deploy teams at different sort of locations throughout the landscape. And these guys spend 20 to 25, sometimes 30 days monitoring rhino on foot from those camps. So, you know, they're out in the bush collecting data, taking photos, taking GPS readings, and basically just making sure that the rhinos are safe. They're also accompanied by NAMPOL officers. So there's one Namibian police officer with every one of our teams that we deploy for safety purposes.
Great. What type of research are you conducting?
Yeah, so we produce an annual population assessment each year. That's released around end of February, beginning of March. That's sent to the ministry. And so because black rhinos are especially protected species, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism retains management rights over those animals. In other words, you know, decisions around translocation or rangeland expansion, that type of stuff, all remains the remit of the ministry. So our population assessment, in other words, all of the data that we gather throughout the year, that all goes to the ministry and enables them to make informed science-based management decisions on the population.
Can you quickly tell us what is the threat in terms of rhino poaching at the moment? Is it still increasing? Is there a decline in Namibia?
Yeah, so I think overall the threat remains. I think this is evidenced by you know, the arrest of quite sophisticated poaching syndicates, and these are, you know, international criminals that are linked also to transboundary crime, to things like human trafficking and drug trafficking. And so you know, poaching isn't just poaching. Quite often, you know, these poachers are linked to these wider international criminal syndicates. So those are still there in Namibia. We, thankfully, in the area that we operate in, we haven't had a poaching incident reported in the last 18 months. So in that sense, we've been quite successful. But I know that some of the private farms and also some of the national parks are still being infiltrated by poachers. So the threat is for sure still there.
But it's fantastic that you can say that you went 18 months without an incident.
Yeah, we are extremely proud of that. And I think especially, you know, given the fact that it's an open access area, so it's outside of a national park. And I think that it just speaks to the work that Save the Rhino Trust and our partners are doing with communities. Not only our work, but also what the Namibian government has done in terms of the rhino custodianship program. So they've basically started to take rhinos out of national parks and put them into communal areas so that communities can benefit through tourism and that type of thing. So it's a real innovative program.
And it's great to see that if government takes hand with communities and with funds and trusts and the private sector, that things can change.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real innovative approach to conservation in Africa, and I think that Namibia for sure is at the forefront of this approach. I mean, nowhere else in the world do you have black rhino roaming on unfenced area in communal area.
Exactly.
It's just kind of unheard of. We were at a conference, the CEO and myself, last week in Kenya, and we were telling people our story, and they were like, "Oh, wow, is this really true? Is this something that's happening?" And these are people from places like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. So nowhere else in Africa is this story actually playing out, and I think it's a fantastic story and something that we can all be proud of.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning as we continue to decentralize African news for you. Keeping that in mind, we're going to have a chat with Masego Mohwasa in Botswana. Masego, dumelang.
Dumelang Aishan, good morning to you in studio and good morning Africa.
Good morning, Africa, indeed. Now, we all know that the Russia-Ukraine conflict has had a ripple effect on many an economy. We were actually just talking about it in our top stories. But it seems like Botswana has not been saved from these effects as it is suffering from low food supply due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Could you please delve into that?
Yes, while most may believe that because we're so far from Ukraine and Russia geographically, that we won't feel any effects from it. However, the Botswana Agricultural Marketing Board, BAMB, beg to differ. They report that the waging war will negatively affect our food supply. The BAMB PR manager says that basic food prices will rise on the backdrop of rising fuel and wheat prices. Wheat continues to be hiked as the two nations are major suppliers of the product. This results in the grain doubling in price over time. With Botswana as a net importer of wheat, this might cause food processors from procuring the product at all. Now, I don't know about you, Ashwin, but I think it was wrong for us to be convinced that farming and backyard gardening is backwards, because at a time like this, we definitely need to go back to that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I understand that the cash heist gang survivor who was arrested by the police is now out on bail. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, the only surviving suspect from the phase 2 shootout following a bank heist that occurred on the 23rd of February this year, Zaonere Boelang, has been granted bail. The bail was set at just 5,000 pula. This followed a bank heist in the main mall of the capital city, Gaborone, where 10 men were unfortunately gunned down by the Botswana Police Service. Almost 1 million pula was stolen, and while most of it was retrieved and recovered, a mere 120 pula remains unaccounted for. The 29-year-old woman will be awaiting a court date to answer for her 10 fellows, including herself, who are now deceased. And in the meantime, she has been ordered not to leave the country. There's been a lot of speculation as to what could happen to 120 pula when 1 million pula had been stolen. I don't know if you have any ideas of where that money could have gone.
No ideas at all, and we'll certainly be looking forward to hearing how that story develops. Now, in the last of your stories, Directorate of Intelligence and Security Services reverses 2 approved tender awards. That's never a good sign. Tell us about it.
Definitely not. Now, the new DIS has been cracking down the whip under Mahosi. The Directorate of Intelligence and Security Services has reversed two tenders which were worth 2 billion pula collectively over national security fears. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Development says the DIS did this for these tenders, which were approved by the PPADB. When answering in Parliament, the minister said both tenders, being the Maung Water Supply and Sanitation Project and the proposed hospital in Mushupa, were awarded to China Jiangsu International. He said the investigations on this revealed that the company was involved in activities which threatened national security. The tender awards have now been shifted to another company called the Zhengtai Group. Now, this is another Chinese company. I'm hoping that they themselves don't pose any national security risks. I'm hoping. I'm always curious to find out as to why these tenders aren't awarded to local companies. It will be interesting to find out how soon in the future we can get that to happen.
Questions that need answers, and that's why we are grateful to have you reliably asking all the right questions in Botswana and bringing us the news. Thank you very much, Masego.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy your weekend.
We shall indeed. I mean, we're a couple of days away, but certainly looking
Very
forward
far.
to it. Now, earlier, Maseko and I spoke about how important it is to be able to grow agriculture in your backyard. So after the break, we'll be looking at the urban agriculture grant that's just about to settle down in Windhoek. Stay with Africa Good Morning. First up, weather.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you for staying with us on this lovely morning. Now, in our next story, more exciting news for the Urban Agricultural Project. Now, the Environment Investment Fund of Namibia is overseeing disbursement of 56 grants to beneficiaries in Windhoek, Swakopmund, Rundu, and the Daures constituency near Maltahohe, with the funding from Japan and support from the United Nations Development Program. Now, the grants are aimed at accelerating urban agriculture before June this year and are valued between 20,000 Namibian dollars and 100,000 Namibian dollars each, and totaling 2.5 million Namibian dollars. Now, Agweto Greek was there. Let's have a look.
My name is Carl Aribeb. I'm the Chief Operations Officer with the Environmental Investment Fund. We at the EIF are entrusted with the responsibility to manage the grant facility under this project, Urban Agriculture Project, by the Namibian government and funded, implemented by UNDP and resourced by the Japanese government. Basically, this project seeks to support urban agriculture in Namibia, especially addressing some disruptions in food security that were occasioned by COVID mostly, but also seeking to address food security in general in urban settings in Namibia. In Namibia as a country, urban agriculture is really an evolving new concept. In the SADC region, in higher rainfall countries, water-rich countries, it is fairly established, but what this project seeks to do is basically to support those who want to grow food in their backyards with their limited land and limited access to water, to basically support it with some tools, implements and equipment, and some irrigation facilities to grow at a limited scale in their backyards. But there are also those that are fairly big in places like at Gotv, where the land is not that scarce, that are also benefiting from this project to basically produce for more than households consumption, basically to sell surplus to hawkers and vendors on the streets, and through that also support the informal trade, informal market, because we rely heavily on produce, imported produce from South Africa. It's a trend-setting project. It's a very innovative project. When we, at least in Namibia and better part of Southern Africa, talk about food production and agriculture, the first thing that comes to our mind are rural areas. But this is one of the first where we are looking at addressing food production at household level under urban environments. So I would like to commend the Namibian government and the partners for conceptualizing this project, and also for the Japanese government for making the financial resources available. And secondly, as the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia, we are also very delighted that these partners that I mentioned in my introduction have entrusted us to oversee the implementation of the grant facility component of this project. For Windhoek, we would be doing handing over to 13 beneficiaries today. For Davis in the Hardap region, same number, 13 beneficiaries. Within the jurisdiction of Swakopmund municipality, another 13 beneficiaries. And Rundu, you can all understand why Rundu has more, because that's really the breadbasket of the country. So Rundu would be boasting with 17 beneficiaries. Colleagues, these 56 beneficiaries, it's a collection of individuals, family groups, households, self-styled groups, group of youth who came together and who are actually doing. Our only requirement was people should have been trying something, not wanting to begin from ground zero. So these are mostly beneficiaries who are trying in their limited ways to produce food within urban environments. So,
of witnessing the official registration of the first beneficiary for the e-voucher system. It's indeed my pleasure and the gratitude to all of you who have come to this event. Ladies and gentlemen, as we recall, on the 7th of February 2022, we all witnessed the launch of the e-voucher system in Namibia, which was instituted by the Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. The e-voucher system is piloted under the project Strengthening Namibia Food System to Recover from Emergencies and Disease Related Shock through the Build Back Better program. The project is aimed at to improve the livelihood of the vendors and small-scale farmers in urban and the urban setting. You may recall that the Minister of Agriculture since 2007 we have been implementing various programs on the subsidy system. However, these programs were the dry and crop production program, the horticulture initiative program, the poultry value chain was implemented by using the manual paperwork, which came with also with challenges in terms of monitoring, ensure efficient effectiveness, and also for us to assess the impact.
Mrs. Katarina Cecilia Young of Build Back Better project. Mr. Philippus Chikongo of Step by Step Poultry and Gardening. Mrs. Foiber Silvanus of Community Gardening for Children's Food Security, Education and Mental Health. And then Mrs. Julie Garces of Farm 85 Poultry Production.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag payback the money.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories. Now, I'm a person who enjoys the occasional sequel. Some things are better the more they come along. But unfortunately, COVID-19 has made me dread sequels. And this first story is one of those examples. APSA predicts the fifth wave could hit South Africa as early as next month. APSA says it's expecting a fifth wave of COVID-19 infections to emerge as soon as next month. New daily COVID-19 infections in South Africa are currently below 1,000 a day, and there have been no new deaths recorded in the official tally in the past 2 days. The bank said COVID-19 claims in the fourth wave were better than its insurance business expected. So it might be it might be the same case with the fifth wave, which hits SA Life Insurance hard. Now, in the first half of 2021, APSA increased its COVID-19 provisions to 846 million rand, with most of that 836 million set aside for the South African operations. The bank used 701 million rand to cover claims in the third and fourth waves. APSA's actuaries have provided for a number of other possible waves still in the insurance business. APSA has topped up the 146 million rand left from the provision set aside in June 2021 by another 330 million rand, taking its provision for the fifth wave and some of the fourth wave claims to 476 million rand.
Now, in our next story, French ride-hailing app aims to reinvent taxi experience in Senegal. Now, Hitch is the second ride-hailing app to be launched in Senegal after Yengo, which is owned by Russian tech giant Yandex, started operations in December. Now, both are testing a largely untapped market for ride-hailing services in Francophone West Africa, where the industry has been slower to take hold than in Anglophone countries, such as Nigeria and Ghana. Now, Yango, active in 21 countries worldwide, launched in Ivory Coast in 2018, where it competes with industry giant Uber. Hitch, one of the top 3 ride-hailing apps in France, also plans to launch in Ivory Coast this month. They said about 3,000 people have downloaded the application so far in Senegal. Yango declined to provide figures. Now, any taxi driver can sign up for either app if they undergo training and their vehicle meets safety standards. Now, the app companies are mindful not to antagonize taxi drivers who in other countries have staged protests against ride-hailing apps.
In our next story, Russia absconds with $10 billion in aircraft. As the European Union sanctioned Russia, the country has sparked some 500 planes worth around 10 billion Namibian dollars leased to its resident flight companies, which lessors may not ever get. Russian airlines appear to have absconded with these planes rather than letting them be repossessed. Sorry, that was US dollars. After the newest wave of EU sanctions banned not only the sale of aircraft and parts to the Russian companies, but also access over EU space for Russian planes, the country's airlines responded by absconding with more than 500 planes valued at over 10 billion US dollars before they could be repossessed by their lessors. Cut off from international markets, supply lines, and aviation insurance providers, Russia's wings are essentially clipped, which may be why its airlines resorted to withholding more than 500 planes leased to them by foreign firms. Russia's aviation regulator recommended on 5 March that all Russian airlines with planes leased from foreign carriers and not registered in Russia avoid flying overseas where the aircraft risked being detained upon arrival. And so Aeroflot, Russia's flag carrier, as well as the country's other airlines, halted their international flights after ensuring that their leased aircraft were safely back and tucked away in Russian hangars.
Now, in our next story, vehicle financing startup Move Africa to expand with $105 million in funding. Now, African startup Move Africa, which provides revenue-based vehicle financing, will expand to 7 new emerging markets in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East in the next 6 months after raising $105 million in its latest round of funding, its CEO said. Now, launched in 2020, Move uses a credit scoring system to provide vehicle financing to customers to purchase new vehicles for ride-hailing, logistics, and deliveries using a percentage of their weekly revenue. Now, Move is part of a new generation of Nigerian-born startups that are upending financial services across Africa, where the majority do not have access to bank financing. Now, CEO and co-founder Ladi Delano said Move was initially started to solve a problem for Uber, which at the time had a lot of demand with people ordering trips, but there were few drivers with cars in Lagos. It has since moved to finance vehicles for logistics and deliveries. Now, Move is operating in 6 cities: Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. Its expansion will see Move extending financing to buses, trucks, and 3-wheelers, and is expected to maintain the same level of growth this year, said Delano.
All right, looking at the recent rollout of startups, you have to say, like the kids say, African startups are doing the things that need to be done. Those were our economic news stories. We're going to get into your economic indicators just before sports with Ari. Now, unless you have a constant stream on your social media and perhaps 5 TV screens, it's pretty difficult to catch up with all the sports news updates, which is why we trust Ari to package it just for you. Have a look at the sports news.
Good day, everyone. It's time for international sport, and we start off with the Women's 50-over Cricket World Cup that's taking place in New Zealand at the moment, and it is South Africa that had a brilliant result in the latest game against England. It is South Africa that beat England by 3 wickets. That's a historic win for them. They haven't beaten them in a World Cup in 20 years, and South Africa also lost to England in the semi-finals of the previous World Cup. But in this game, it was South Africa that sent England into bat. 235 for 9 was the score of England. South Africa replied with 236 for the loss of 7 with a few balls left. So historic win for South Africa. They have won now 3 games, and also Australia, the only other team unbeaten in the tournament so far, also with 3 wins from 3 games. England, as defending champions, got to have a challenge. They might not qualify for the semi-finals after losing their first 3 games of the tournament. So they play India next. In South Africa's innings, just briefly, it was Marizanne Kapp, the all-rounder, that did brilliant. She took 5 wickets and also scored 32 runs, and it was Laura Wolfhard, the batsman, that scored 77 runs for the South African team. Now to cycling news, and it is the Paris-Nice cycle tour that was concluded, and it is Primož Roglič of Slovenia that was the winner in the end after the 8 stages of the Paris to Nice tour. And it was a difficult last stage for Roglič. He had a healthy lead, but there was a few climbs, and he had to be protected by his teammate, that is Wout van Aert of Belgium, that looked after Roglič. That was because Simon Yates of the UK, of Britain, he challenged very hard. He won the stage in the end, the 8th and final stage, but he just won it by 9 seconds, and it was Wout van Aert and Roglič that came in 9 seconds after him. That meant that Roglič won the tour by 29 seconds over Simon Yates. That was 29 seconds behind him in 2nd place. And now I continue with tennis news. It is the Indian Wells tennis tournament, Indian Wells Masters, that's taking place at the moment in California. Strong field in the men's and women's draw. On the men's draw first, it is the 9th seed from Canada, that is Felix Auger-Aliassime. He was knocked out in the round of 64, and he lost to Botic van der Zandschulp from the Netherlands, and the score was 7-6, 6-7 and 6-3. Number 1 seed, Daniel Medvedev, he's through to the next round, and also is it Rafael Nadal, that's also through to the next round, 2 of the highest seeds in the tournament. Number 7 seed, Andrei Rublev, he's playing under a neutral flag, he's from Russia, and he beat Dominic Cooper of Germany in 2 sets, 7-5 and 6-4. Southern African interest there is Lloyd Harris, he's through to the next round as well, and he will play the world number 6, that is Matteo Berrettini. In the women's draw of the Indian Wells tournament, it is Simone Halep that beat Coco Gauff by 6-3 and 6-4 to advance to the next round of 32. And 2 big players, big names that dropped out. They are major winners. That is Naomi Osaka, she lost, and also Emma Raducanu of Britain also lost in the tournament. Iga Swiatek of Poland, she's the 3rd seed. She's through to the next round, and she will play against Angelique Kerber. And to conclude, some soccer news from Britain, from the English Premier League, and it is from Liverpool. And the striker Mo Salah is still in negotiations with the club. That is related to renewing his contract. So there was talks for quite a while that he might leave the club, and the negotiations is still ongoing according to Liverpool Football Club. There's also indications that he might, that other clubs might be interested in buying him for about £56 million. At the moment, he's earning about £200,000 a week. That is Mo Salah as a striker, but it's not the most in the league. There's about 15 other players that earn more money than Mo Salah at the moment. Liverpool doing well at the moment. They beat Brighton over the weekend by 2-0, and they're just 3 points behind Manchester City in the lock with a few games to go in the English Premier League. But Mo Salah, the negotiations with him regarding his contract is still ongoing. So that's the international sports news for today. Hope you have a great day, and we talk again tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning from the top of the hour as we have been bringing you the pertinent stories happening on the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, worry not. Here are some of the highlights. 5 people drown after a church ritual at Fet River. Kyiv apartment block shelled, underground gas storage unit in Ukraine damaged by shelling amidst expected peace talks. Kinshasa, at least 60 dead in train accident. US ready to help Africa find solution to possible higher food prices amid Russia-Ukraine war. Senegal launches operation against rebels in Casamance. ABSA predicts the 5th wave could hit South Africa as early as next month. Those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Tuesday morning. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 and on our Gotv channel 94 every weekday between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Now, if you have any comments regarding our program, do share them with us on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And also, if you happen to have videos of happenings from your parts of Africa, or photos even, do share them with us and we'll gladly include them in our program. I am Glenna Rashipura.
And I am Ashwin Bedi. Until tomorrow, Swera Jaganaka.